Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to have such a great discussion today because we're going to be talking about that thing that everybody always goes, ew, and makes faces at and does all those things, because we're going to be talking about sales. And as I say, every single time I interview somebody about sales, if you ain't doing sales, your business is not going to succeed. So stop making faces about it. So joining me today is Jake Dunlap, who's going to talk to us about how to really be successful in sales. Good morning, Jake. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited for the conversation, and hopefully I can change some perceptions and give some very tactical advice today. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. I love it. I love it. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will do a deep dive. So Jake Dunlap consistently designs repeatable, sustainable sales models and processes that outperform industry standards. As founder and CEO of Skaled Consulting, Jake helps executives around the world accelerate business growth with data-backed sales solutions. Before building Skaled, he held the roles of VP of Sales at Nowait, which was acquired by that little company called Yelp, Head of Sales and Customer Success at Chartbeat, and VP of Sales at Glassdoor, which was acquired by Recruit Holdings for $1.2 billion in 2018. Jake has positioned himself as an expert among multiple channels and spends most days sharing his thoughts with actionable takeaways on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and of course, his podcast, The Jake Dunlap Show. So again, Jake, welcome.
All right. I'm excited. Looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, I always like to know a little bit about how my guests got to where they are today. So because you've had, kind of a varied background when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile. So tell me a little bit about how you discovered that this is your passion in life.
Yeah. Well, like if I go back to the passion part, I worked full time in college, and the jobs that paid the most were sales roles. So I did some telemarketing. For those of you out there that might remember, I would call you and try to get you to go to like a timeshare pitch, or I tried to sell MCI.
Oh, you were one of those.
MCI. I tried to get you to switch your long distance back when people had landlines. And then I waited tables too. And so, I was good, right? Like it was just, I had like a much less like I guess fear of failure or ability to get uncomfortable, I realized, than like the average person.
Okay. And
when I came out of college, I really wanted to work in sports. And so first job was with the Tampa Bay Rays. They were the worst team in baseball at the time. But I quickly outperformed all the other kind of new grads. And also I was really fortunate. There's a gentleman who's probably 6 or 7 years older. He was doing a career switch. He'd been in banking, and then he wanted to get into sports. And, he got me into reading and making suggestions. And I really realized very early on that, sales there's an art and the craft to it, but it's also very much a process. And for me, I spent my first 2.5 years of my career in sports. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, you can see that I was fired from a role in sports. I was a top performer.
It's worth looking. Go look, folks.
We're going to keep it clean, but and God, I was very fortunate. I was in Phoenix at the time. Got into technology with a company called Career Builder. Was there for 4 years. I'm a student of the game, and what sales, why I got into that as my profession is sales solves a lot of things for me. It's curious. I love to learn. I don't know if I'm the absolute most empathetic person. I'm fairly empathetic, but I'm very good at locking in and helping people to unlock problems.
Okay.
And I realized that when you're truly a sales professional and an executive at that level, that's really the heart of what it looks like. So for me, that is how I kind of found my passion. And then what happened is after my second stint as a VP of sales at a rapid growth tech company, I realized I'm not a great employee. I'm like amazing at the work, but I wasn't good at like the office politics and things like I was like 30, 31, 32 at the time too. So, I had some maturing to do, I'm sure. And what I thought is like, well, what's my career going to look like? And it's like, okay, great. I mean, because if you're a sales leader, it's every 2 to 4 years, you're going to go to a different company and like, yuck, like that doesn't sound great. Like I want to build something. So I love the work. I'm passionate about sales. Why am I doing this for other people? And so I started my firm Skaled in 2013. We're now close to almost 40 people globally. Wow. So we do, modern sales process consulting, sales technology optimization, and it's fun. Like I get to talk about like where the revenue generation is going, the merger between sales and marketing. And so for me, I think I was able to find something that aligned to check a lot of boxes around the things that give me energy every day versus the things that drain me every day. And so I'm definitely happy and fortunate with where I am now.
Cool. I love it. And it is one of those things that people are either really good at or not so much. I mean, you can learn how to be better, which is, kind of the thing, but it is kind of a personality thing. You mentioned, one of the keys is listening to people. And how many times have we seen the salesman, whether it's in person or online, who never listens? They just say, I want to sell you this. I want to sell you this. I want to sell you this. So listening is one of the greatest skills to have.
And I wasn't very good at it. Like what I would say is this, it's more process than what people think. And I tell people this all the time. I can build an army of B players. Like I can go and build a machine. And I mean, and sales actually is more process and science than what people, because you meet these people who are just really charismatic and that's like a very specific persona within sales. And for anybody kind of about, like thinking through this, and I've learned this throughout my career of just wow, like sales is like a process, and if you just literally follow these steps and you execute them this way, like the closing a deal is an outcome of a well executed process versus like its own thing. So and again, it's all those nuances about sales, and sales is getting ready to go, I think, through a pretty big transformation too here over the next 5 to 10 years. But all those things are what make me excited about it.
Let's talk about that transformation, and especially let's talk about, we're coming out of hopefully COVID and the pandemic. It's kind of, I love the people that say, I can't wait for it to get back to normal. I'm like, really, what world do you live in? It has changed. So talk to us about how January 2020 and January 2022 from a sales perspective really is so different.
Yeah. I mean, January of 2020, if you would have went to your average sales vice president or CRO and said, you can close mid 6-figure deals, 7-figure deals, even high 5-figure deals, 100% virtually, they would tell you you're insane.
Right.
They'd be like, no, it's about the relationship. It's about the people.
Face to face, playing golf.
Face to face. It's like, I'll talk a little bit about that too. And so people are like, wow, okay, well, maybe we don't need to be face to face. And I think what it is what customers, I'll make this analogy. Think about our consumer behavior and how much it's changed over the last few years.
Right.
I don't care where you live if you're in the US or other, a lot of your listeners are also not in the US. We are used to having things at our fingertips.
Right.
If Amazon Prime, that thing's not showing up at my house in a day or two.
4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. I'm out. And so I want you to think about how quickly our consumer behavior has changed over the last 2, 3, 4 years. And what we're used to is we want information at our fingertips. We don't want to wait for things, etc. And what COVID did is it accelerated digital, like hybrid selling, a mix of face-to-face and in person. So it just accelerated that. And it got all the people that would have been laggards or late majority into the majority of people that are used to now transacting virtually and buying big ticket items without ever meeting an individual. And so the other thing to think about is, again, why I bring up the consumer trends is that sales processes historically, people didn't have access to information, meaning like I needed to talk to a salesperson to get the information. I don't anymore. It's called Google, YouTube. Okay.
And you're walking around carrying this little thing in your hand. So even if you're in a store, you don't need, you just look it up on your smartphone.
That's right. Yeah. So think Google, YouTube, right? And so the issue is though, sales has not adapted. We still throw up a lot of barriers to qualify people and not realizing that today it used to be. So imagine a world from 5-6 years ago. Most people that we would talk to were coming to us with about the same knowledge, right? Of like, hey, we're interested in something in this space. We're not sure. We're talking to you. And so the salesperson's job is, upfront education and da-da-da. Well, that's not what it's like today. Today, some people are coming to you like they're already at step 4. And the problem with
they might know more than you do.
They do know more. And in many, many cases, especially about the competition and the market. And so now as people are coming more prepared, it's how are sales organizations making sure that they're adapting and not doing some of these things like putting up gates, gating a meeting with a salesperson and these types of things to where, again, and we've got to be able to embrace technology. If someone says, hey, can you send me some like, detail, like a demo that sure, no problem. Yeah. Here's the thing. And then we'll set some time up for Friday as opposed to like, well, let's get on a call and talk through like, yuck,
right. You're going to share your screen so I can see it.
Let me just do it myself. Let me do it myself. I don't need you. Again, to your point, like you're going to again, people today want to self-guide more and more and more. And that trend is not going anywhere. And so I think it's to me now, it's like, what does the value of salespeople become? Well, it becomes project management, right? It becomes like, hey, let me help you through the process. Let's work through this. Let's quarterback the people you need from your side. Let me help you to get you what you need when you need it. We'll show it's project management. It's making sure that people see success with the tool post implementation. One of the main reasons we did a poll and, 27%, I think it's 20, something like that said, one of their biggest issues with salespeople is unrealistic go lives and implementations. And that has to change where we're saying, hey, this is the process. So I really feel like sales is moving to where if you really can't add value, and value today is not education on the product, it's industry trends, where things are happening, and you can't project manage effectively, you're done.
Right.
That is what sales is moving to. So it's a human in the loop of a process that adds value, and the value is not just product related and can help to project manage and take some time or workload off of the customer. That's what people want from sales in January 2022.
Right. And they want them at unusual points in the process, weird points in the process, because they're doing their own research. And so they might just have one little question here or there. We are used to sales being at the start. And now they might get, like you said, step 4, they're almost ready to pull the trigger, but they've got one little question, and so if that sales person, I almost said sales guy, we know they're sales girls, that salesperson, if they are of the mindset of, I'm at the very start of the process, then they're going to lose because that person already knows everything about that. They just want that one little question answered.
Yeah. As opposed to what we were trained to do is say, oh yeah, absolutely. Why don't we just hop on a call real quick and we could talk through that? Yuck. No, right. Answer the question, Tim. And then I'm happy to set up a call in a week or so once I do some other things. But don't bring this stuff to me that's like, well, the pricing, well, that really depends, Roger. Let's get on another. Stop
it's like
hiding pricing. Again, can you imagine that? Like, imagine what the stuff that we put up with in B2B sales that just would not be tolerated in B2C. And that is the truth, because everything B2C trends comes to B2B. Perfect example, influencers. We are now entering the age of B2B influencers. I called this 4 years ago, where you're getting people, B2B people, thought leaders are getting paid to post on LinkedIn. Microsoft paid me a stupid, like to post about Microsoft. I'm like, sure. Love Microsoft. That's great. Right. So all of those trends will come. And so for all the business owners out there listening to this and executives, it's what are you doing to remove friction today? How can I meet them where they're at in an expert and when I do meet them, it's in an expert capacity. And, the team isn't just a bunch of likable guys, like you said, and guys to play golf, or whatever it is.
Right. Well, and a big part of that was because of COVID, when all of a sudden we could not meet face to face, and obviously depending on what you were selling, you might not be able to travel. You still travel is somewhat restrictive. And so all of the things that we used to do, we couldn't do. And the only thing we could do was basically technology somehow related. So whether you were texting, emailing, Zooming, all of those various things, that was what it all of a sudden shifted to. And it's shifted to that overnight. I mean, Friday we were fine. Monday it was like oopsie daisy. And I think that was what really threw
Zoom.
people.
Yeah, like it forced, they all had to learn Zoom. They had to learn how to project manage in a virtual world where someone wasn't at their desk. So again, it accelerated buyer behavior and customer behavior. And as sellers adapted, and like you said, going back to normal, like why? Because now you think a random stranger who's had 2 hours worth of phone calls with you, once you in their office, yuck. No, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't.
And it is interesting to watch consumer behavior. I am baffled by people who buy a car completely online. I'm still the kick the tires and want to drive it a little bit type of person. And I know that, you have, it's not that, it arrives at your door and you can't change your mind, all those various things. But, I bought a pickup. You're from Texas. I bought a pickup earlier this year. And it was really tricky because because of COVID, they didn't want you to take test drives because then they'd have to clean it and sanitize it. You might have sneezed in there or touched something. And so you had to get pretty far down that sales process before they would ever hand you the keys, literally.
Yeah.
And it was interesting going through it because I had done my research. I knew what I wanted to buy. And I basically just needed that test drive. I wanted to see what it was like to sit in that car or that pickup and drive it around the block. They didn't like that. I mean, I went to several dealerships that, no, they wanted to go to the start. Plus, they always wanted to sell to my husband. And it's like, no, it's mine. That's a whole nother sales.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I had done my research. I just wanted that little thing answered, which was the test drive. And some of them just couldn't do it because that wasn't what they normally did.
Exactly. And that's exactly it. People are coming in at all these different entry points. And that's exactly kind of taking that. That's a perfect analogy of taking that full circle, which is your process set up to adapt based on where the person is in their process as a part of this. Like one of the worst things that we did in B2B is we have these inbound SDRs. And these are people that their job is literally you sign up for a demo and they have a 15 or 20 minute call with you to qualify you. But they can't answer any questions about the product. The companies that continue, it's over. Like that type of customer, like non-customer centric approach. People used to put up with it because they needed access to the information. If not, it's like, look, if you're going to be a pain in the butt to work with, I know that you and XYZ over here are like fairly similar.
Yeah.
Man, these
so
guys
I'm going
are really
to them.
easy. I'm just going to go work with them.
Yeah. And they do. I mean, there is nothing anymore that's completely unique. Long gone are those days, and you have competitors and the savvy consumer has their list and they're going down through that list, and it's whoever makes them happiest and does it the quickest.
Yep, exactly.
So, it is I mentioned in the intro that people think sales, ooh, and we have to do sales. Seriously, folks, if you're not doing sales, then you're not selling. Therefore, your company is not surviving. So going forward, how is, we talked about the process and things, and you work with companies, small startups up to the giant big guys.
Yep.
And the process is the same. I mean, it just gets a little more complicated with the big guys, for a variety of reasons. But, for the people who are like, I hate sales.
Yeah.
What do you tell them? I mean, aside from get over it.
Well, yeah. Then you better not want to be.
You need to go work for somebody else and not do sales for them.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a misconception, meaning like, like there's that we have these, like models or things that we've seen around like car sales, et cetera, and other sales motions. When you get to the heart of it, what really good sales is, we talked a little bit about listening, for example. It is helping someone to make a decision.
Okay.
And And if you really have that mindset of,
Mm-hmm.
Look, and if I think that there's a fit, I'm going to try to position this in a way that
Mm-hmm.
I think you should work with me. But I think what a lot of people who don't really understand the process behind sales is it really is a process. And this
Mm-hmm.
is, for most companies, it's like, how does a process work? You have a first call. It's a discovery. They ask you questions. You tell them stuff. You do a demo, blah, blah, blah. What's the next call? You loop in more people from both sides, and then you get more people. What's the next call? You talk about a proof of concept or a proposal. If it's a proof of it's the same. Like the thing, and that is what most people don't realize is it's just a process. It's a way that we have, I don't know, process we have developed about how we buy things. And so, it's
you want to kick the tires.
It's if people want a proof of concept, great, bake that into your process. Don't try to force someone into a 2-year deal if they've never done business with you. And that's probably why you're losing deals. So for anyone who's kind of thinking like, that or has a negative perception of sales, what I would tell you is like, sales is not what people, like I said, it's not what people think it is. It's a process. It's really focused on listening. It's focused on, hey, look, it's focused on being an expert. A true expert, not what I call a blind expert. A blind expert is someone who only knows their own product,
right?
And just is
and
like
they're reading
the
from the
competition
brochure.
Sucks, and the competition sucks. As opposed to like for me, a great seller, they know the market, they know what's happening, they can help to kind of tell you pros and cons of everything, and if there's a fit, they'll put together a plan that's going to fit for you. And look, they're going to try to the job. I tell sellers this who think the job is called information giving. Okay, the job is not called information giver. Because you wouldn't make commissions if it was just giving information. And so, but I really truly believe that that's what you lead with. You're leading with expertise. You're leading with, look, I know a lot about this one little niche of a thing of whatever which it is that I sell, or software, or hard physical good. I know a lot about this. I'm going to tell you what I think the market looks like. Tell me a little bit about what you're hoping to accomplish and the outcomes that you want to provide. I'll tell you how we would solve that, and we'll see if we can make something work together. I mean, that is the nuance of it. And look, if you are running a company, chances are you believe that your product can help people,
right?
You believe that or your service can help people. So why wouldn't you want to help people? Like, and that's really what all sales is like, it's helping people at times help themselves because they haven't had a time to kind of take a step back and think about a problem. And so, that's where the questions and listening comes in. And, I can talk all about like a difference between like a structured conversation and free flowing. That's a whole other topic. But that is where I think if people can get aligned to that mindset of like, look, I believe my product can help people. And when I have conversations with other people, prospects or customers, I am trying to genuinely help them. And if I can, fantastic. If I can't, I will try to get them in the right direction.
Yeah.
It really simplifies sales. It's no longer becomes about like pushing them to do. Now, granted, you got to be willing to be good. You've got to be willing to have conversations that are slightly uncomfortable. That's the facts. But for the most part, 90% of it is that helping, and 5 or 10% are those moments where, you do need to ask that tough question, and you do need to say, look, we've had 4 conversations now, Deb.
You ready, or
where are we at in this process? And that's fine. But that's just like anything. It's just a skill that happens over time. It's like having a tough conversation with an employee. Like it's no different. It's the same emotions, the same level of preparedness that you should come up with. So yeah, that's what I tell people who have that kind of that mindset is like, it's not quite what you think it is.
Right. And I love that you say a good salesperson has to know about their competitors. And because like we've been saying, the consumer has researched them. So more than likely, they're going to say, hey, Jake, you're company A, but I know company B does this. And if you can't say, ugh, they're horrible, they're awful. I mean, you shouldn't. You need to be able to say, you're right, they do. Here's the difference. And sometimes there is a difference. Sometimes, every once in a while, it's like, well, yeah, they do it better.
If that's what you need exactly. Yeah, if that's it. And that goes back to it. Like, if that's what they need, and they need X, Y, Z, it's my job to know the market. It's my job to understand what's happening in the space. So again, when someone comes to me and tells me what they need, I can put them in the right option.
Right.
And I feel like so many people are, they're so focused on themselves, they're
Mhm.
focused on the product. And that's,
Mhm.
I think, where the bad side of sales comes out is,
Mhm.
whenever they're not listening, they're not, even if they are listening, they're definitely not hearing me, or
Mhm.
like and the demo is like, I could copy and paste it and give
Mhm.
the same demo to
Uh-huh.
12 people. It's like,
Mhm.
why did you ask me any questions
Mhm.
if you were just going to do some cookie cutter demo that has,
Mhm.
that you're not mentioning
Mhm.
anything we talked about
Mhm.
before. And so, yeah, again, I think that's why more and more people are like, you know what, just let me go do the demo or pre-record or get some kind of clickable thing that I can go use on my own, because they're just seeing less and less value from salespeople.
Right. And we're doing this at all sorts of times of day too. I mean, that's part of it is, it used to be that, especially if you were doing B2B, it was 8 to 5-ish in whatever time zone you were dealing with. Now somebody might be looking at your information Sunday morning at 2 a.m. You had better have it all there, or again, they're going to go to somebody else.
That's right. That's right. And again, well, the interesting part is, again, and it doesn't have to, there's so many, and so maybe the one thing we haven't talked about really is sales technology.
Mhm.
And there's also a lot of really cool things that are happening. There's over 2,000 sales technologies that exist.
Mhm.
And so when we talk about, kind of another answer or another important point about your January 2022
Mhm.
comment is sales technology is another transformation. Meaning,
Right.
like I said, there are literally 2,000 plus
Mhm.
sales specific, not marketing. Marketing
Mhm.
is like 10,000 now.
Right. Mhm.
Like, and if your team, you're like, well, we've got a CRM,
Mhm.
and you're competing against a team. There's teams that are spending $800, $1,000
Mhm.
per month per
Mhm.
salesperson
Right.
on technology that
Mhm.
allows them to better interact with people. Again, that deal comes in, like, that deal comes in on a Saturday. I can then route it,
Mhm.
to this individual. I can then set up a sequence of activities where this
Yep.
person gets this email,
Mhm.
and then they can get a call. Like, so there's just so much. And then once they finish that sequence, if they didn't book, they then get returned back to marketing. And then once they trip lead score of 75, I then automatically put them back in this sequence, and a person does customized outreach. So there is so much that is possible right now that people are still doing manually in their sales and their marketing orgs.
They've got it on an Excel spreadsheet, right?
Or they send it via email, or they even just in the CRM, it's like, here, so-and-so is raving their hand, follow up. You can now action those, people. And this is like, I'm just scraping, there's conversational intelligence. There's a whole bunch of sectors. There's a lot of data around, being able to do better, like deeper analysis and insights on your sales process and what things look like. So sales technology is the other thing that I feel like any business owner, you need to know what's possible.
Right.
You don't have to be a super expert. Although I would say that most people need to like up their sales technology game, or at least what they know about it. Because I see a lot of people in the next 5 to 10 years. Again, imagine that if you're an A player and because you're good and you're likable, and I'm a B player, but I'm able to use technology to be 15% more productive, 20%, I can beat you.
Then you just, you got the A plus.
That's right. Because I know how to leverage the tech to like not spend my time doing dumb stuff. And I can spend all my time like talking to customers, even if the quality of conversation isn't as good. So again, I think that would be the other big trend that I think a lot of people need to wake up to, that sales technology is doing more and more to not just automate things. And that's kind of the dark side of technology is that we did a poll, I think it's 1,600 respondents around why outbound isn't working. And almost 50% said generic messaging.
Oh yeah.
And 25% said a focus on quantity over quality. And so what's happened is we've used a lot of these tools to do more generic messaging. And instead we should be doing less and custom messaging with some, templates and some things for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I feel like today it's actually not that difficult, to stand out. There's a lot of different, video. We're big on video, and there's a few different tools that do that. LinkedIn, and we can get into kind of talking about LinkedIn and sales and B2B process as well. But I want to make sure that people really start to kind of just become aware of what's happening in sales tech, because it's really important.
Right. And just in a lot of things. I mean, I was looking on your website and you've got an article about add-ons for Zoom that salespeople should be using. Of course, I was about to say I don't do sales. That's stupid. Of course I do sales. But that fascinated me because, Zoom's fairly new. I mean, it obviously took off in the last 2 years. But other companies went, ooh, people are using this. Therefore, we need to design stuff that goes along with it. And so, yeah, that was a fascinating article to see, hey, there's all these things that go along with it.
Yeah. And Zoom too. Zoom's added a bunch of features too that people aren't really using, called like a whiteboard function,
right.
As well. And I think the tool, one of the tools that I think I mentioned in that article is a tool called Mural, which is like basically collaboration. There's one called Miro, ironically. And these are like collaborative spaces where, think of it like, you used to get in a conference room with sticky notes. And, again, like that's what we're that's kind of the things that we're missing on a Zoom environment. Now, if we want to talk about the cutting edge and the new, it's the idea of the metaverse. And the metaverse is this, for those of you who are listening, and you probably know what that Facebook,
Facebook changed its name.
but let me tell you why it's important. And again, talking about sales and revenue and how customers want to interact, and I just have had this kind of like revelation the last week, where what the metaverse is a place where your people can kind of live and interact with each other, and it has features like Zoom, where you can you get two people together, you pop open a Zoom, you pull over a virtual kind of whiteboard, etc. And it mimics as more and more companies are not doing 100% in office, right? And as many companies have stayed 100% remote, there is something about that togetherness that I don't think
spontaneity.
is going exactly that I don't think is going anywhere. And I think, we created like Slack or Microsoft Teams to do quick interactions. We have Zoom. What the metaverse allows us to do is combine those things and create somewhat of a collaborative feel that I think a lot, and that serendipity of the water cooler of instead of having 85 meetings, you would just bump into someone and they tell you something for 2 minutes, and then you didn't have to set up a 30-minute meeting with them. So the next thing I would think about is for companies, and this is a mix of sales and just think internally for your own companies, for people listening, if I'm a buyer, maybe I'd want to go to, we're a large partner of a company called Outreach.io, which is a leading sales technology. And maybe I'd want to go to an outreach room where I could talk to other customers and people and things like that. Like, that makes sense. Maybe I'd want to go to, do this or do that. So if you think that digital selling you think Zoom was the leap, it was not the leap. It was it was the opening act. The real thing that's coming is the metaverse, and we can talk, and you can be like, well, I don't know about that or whatever, but this is a thing. Like I would encourage you to go take a look at Gather Town. So gather.town. That's what we're kind of experimenting with right now. But again, it's these like digital communities, and I'll talk a little bit maybe about LinkedIn too as a part of this, that more and more, salespeople used to do business in their town. I'm in Austin, right? And so you build a reputation by, you literally have a Rolodex. Most of you, or many,
you went to your networking events.
You don't even know what a Rolodex is. It was this thing that you was alphabetical.
You had business cards in it.
It was like a whole thing. Well, now, because more things are digitally, all of you now have and so you built a reputation in your town. Like, oh, John's great for benefits. He's a good dude. I've met him, blah, blah, blah. Now we have a virtual reputation. And how many of you have Googled your name recently?
Right.
How many have Googled to understand if, hey, like what happens when I Google your name and your LinkedIn profile pops up and it looks like garbage, right? And do you think people want to do business with you or your company? If I pull it up, I can't find anything. You look like a faceless company. And then company number two, this guy's, got a refresh page, looks, good, talks about some thought leadership, industry trends, things like that. Like, again, who are they going to want to do business with?
Right.
And so I think we're entering into a new era. And this is especially for all my executives out there. You cannot not participate. You're doing your company a massive, I'm sorry if you don't like social media or whatever people want to hear from people much more than companies. And I'll tell kind of a quick story. My company's almost 8 years old now. almost 9 years old now. And, when I started the company, I would put, for the first 6 years, I pushed everything to scaled. And I would, I was like, well, I don't want to be bragging or talking about myself. And then 2018, I'm like, nobody cares. Like nobody's like blog posts. Like how many of you, are like, have like 80 blog post tabs open or things bookmarked on your phone that you're going to read. So
that you never look at.
Never. And so, what do people want? They want bite size, easy to consume, quick to scroll, whatever it is. And that's what LinkedIn offers, for a lot of you. It's like, it's an opportunity for, as an executive, you can put out a little piece of thought leadership. It doesn't have to be a big hole to do. And that's what I did in 2018. And, we're getting millions, plural, of dollars in revenue inbound from organic posting on LinkedIn.
Yep. Oh yeah.
We've closed 6-figure deals where I kid you not, the very first call, I'm not even sure what you guys do, but I think we need your help. And that's from me as the CEO posting on LinkedIn every day.
Yep.
Takes me like 10, 15 minutes. And again, I think a lot of CEOs have got to get over it. You got to up your digital game. You've got to make sure that you have some type of digital presence. It's required to do business in the future in 2022. And it was required to do business now, but it will be 1000% required. So start getting skilled on this stuff today.
Oh yeah. And it has to be you. And I say that as a company that provides social media services, yes, we do posting for companies. We don't do posting for people. And I tell people that's because you can sniff it out really fast, and then you lose the whole, the one of the key words that, is authentic. I know when it is somebody who is paid to do that posting. And I'm fine with it coming from a company, but when it's coming from a person, it's like, nope. And so right there, you've got another knock against you.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It is doable. Like you can do it.
You have to learn.
The key is you've got to what we do is we interview the person and we chop it up.
Yes.
So it's almost impossible to purely mimic, but it is possible. And that's what a lot of you could start with is have your whoever interview you. And here's the key. Here's what I want you to do. Don't use your company name. Oh my God. Don't talk about your company. Just talk about trends and thought leadership. And that is what people are looking for today is people are looking at from companies. Stop putting links in all your posts. Why don't you actually try to add some value that's not pushing product? Why don't you try to add value? Stop resharing and we're seeing brands and, Gong is one of the best examples. Gong's multiple. It's like 100x top line. And I am convinced that a big reason for that multiple is they've done an amazing job of being a person as a company. And if you go to Gong's LinkedIn, gong.io, you'll see it. They do text only posts with no links. They add value.
Right.
They do polls and they interact like a human because that's what we want from our interaction. And so for the CEOs out there, you really need to think about, again, even if you need someone to kind of support you a little bit, LinkedIn is text only post. You don't even need to do a video or anything like this.
It's easy peasy. Yeah. Like you said, 15 minutes a day, folks, 15 minutes a day.
Easy. Yeah. So that's again, and I can talk more about LinkedIn. We do a lot of LinkedIn sales strategy, et cetera.
I've got that page opened up so that we can do that. And it's interesting, especially because we're talking about technology, but it is putting that human touch back into it. And when somebody wants the human touch, they want the human touch. I want to know that my question is being answered by a person as opposed to an AI. And I mean, there are times where AI questions are great. I mean, a simple, basic question, I'm expecting it to be an AI. I mean, that's just the way of the world anymore. But if it's a more complicated question, I want it to be a person. And maybe it is that they say, hey, you know what, this would be easier if we jumped on a quick Zoom. Or, if they send a link to a video or something, it's still getting that little personal touch back in there because, we buy products, but we still build those relationships with people.
Exactly. And then that's what people need to realize is that And it's okay. It doesn't mean you're an egomaniac. And I think that that's the problem that a lot of people have, is they think that if they're talking about something and not promoting their company, that they're having an ego about it.
Right.
It's not what this is about. And that's what I realize is like, and I'll tell you what makes me feel good about it. And what the other thing is, like, I'm not asking for anything.
Right.
I'm not on my post. I'm not sitting here saying, look at me. I'm like, hey, here's 3 things that you need to know about driving momentum in digital sales.
Yep.
Enjoy. Like, I'm adding value and it's fun.
And you're setting yourself up as that trusted resource, and by not having those links to your company, to wherever, it became non-salesy, and you became that trusted person. So then when I need that, whatever, it's like, Jake's the guy I need to go to.
That's exactly right. And that's what happens. And trust me, I was the biggest naysayer of like 99% of things of what I'm saying. I tell this all the time. If like April 2018 heard November 2021 Jake talk, he might punch him. He'd be like, what do you mean? If there's no, like, where's the direct attribution? How do you directly tie the, it's called brand. And trust me, and all marketing is starting to pivot back to this concept of like, it's about all, it's all of it. You should be doing these direct response things, but also brand amplifies all of that. We spend 0 on advertising, but again, are generating millions of dollars in revenue from LinkedIn organic posts.
Yeah, because you're that trusted resource. I see an ad. Well, of course you're going to say good things about yourself,
right.
But it's like, ugh, whatever. I mean, when was the last time, you actually bought something based on an ad? I don't know.
Instagram catches me sometimes.
Yeah.
If it's like late night, I'm like, oh man, I need those sneakers now.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll do, and I do the same thing on Facebook. And then I discover I'm going to get my sneakers three months from now because, they're coming from somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, it's that little extra, it's the not being the sales guy, being the sales guy, but not being the sales guy.
It just feels, and again, like all you're doing is just sharing advice. I had, it's like, and people ask like, well, like what's like the return on investment. I couldn't tell you the return on investment of one post.
Right.
What I do know is the cumulative effect that, here we are 3 years later and, I've established a digital reputation that, people know to come to me for sales questions. Like the amount of DMs I get on a daily basis about, hey, Jake, I saw this post. Can you tell me this? And it's like, and then over time it builds. And I think so many people, it's like, we want instant gratification. Well, reputations aren't built in 5 seconds. It takes a little bit of time. And I think that that's part of it too, is the CEOs don't see an initial payoff or like, I'm busy. And I just realized like, this is making sure I have a digital presence and reputation is a part of a CEO's job. And so for all my business owners out there, again, and maybe for you, maybe you sell candles or maybe you sell organic pet food or something. Then guess what? Everything I'm saying, you need to be on Instagram doing everything I'm telling you right now. You need to be on Facebook doing everything I'm telling you right now. Either way, you need to show up where your customers are. Right? We do a B2B sales consulting firm. So lots of our buyers are on LinkedIn. So it makes sense. But I got to tell you right now, if for some reason something happened, I've got no sacred cows here. I would immediately go and I would all of a sudden start to do even more stuff on Instagram or YouTube or wherever I thought my customers lived.
Yeah. And it's a challenge when somebody's saying, I only have X number of hours in the day. But when you really look at it and go, okay, what is the best use of my time? That's what it comes down to. It is. And that's one thing that COVID made us do. We weren't going and meeting and doing all of those things. So it's like, ooh, I'm just sitting in front of my computer. What am I going to do?
And that's it. But again, you're not going to see the ROI. That's where brand is sneaky.
Right.
It doesn't happen immediately. It's like, why do executives start to go and want to do speaking events? Why do you want to do a speaking? Like everyone asks yourself, well, I'd go speak at a networking event. I'd go speak at an industry. What do you think's happening on LinkedIn every day? Right. If you curate your network and your connections, LinkedIn is a networking speaking opportunity for every single human every single day. Or
and
Twitter,
you're not
or
on a
whatever
plane. You're not, I tell people I don't have to
No.
put shoes on.
I do not have shoes on right now either.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, who wears shoes anymore? One of the things that, and from my marketing background, I am not a fan of paid influencers along the lines of celebrities. And to me, part of that is because they're losing that authenticity. I always joke that, I'm not going to go buy a Lincoln simply because Matthew McConaughey is selling it, because more than likely he doesn't drive a Lincoln. I mean, he was paid to drive it for, the whatever to do that. So that's where influencers are tricky. I mean, I've had people who have said, hey, we want to pay X celebrity. You mentioned baseball early on. I mean, I'm in Atlanta. So now, of course, the Braves are high ticket people. And of course, I'm a big college sports fan. So now we've got all of this name,
Georgia
image, likeness stuff. Yeah. Just because the college quarterback says you should buy this, maybe not.
Well, the key is now, I mean, like the key to good influencer marketing is it's not a promo. It's like, it's in the, like what you're seeing, like the influencers that are doing really well and this process is like, they're using the product in a demo.
It is the 16-year-old doing makeup, which baffles me.
Exactly. And that's it too. It's like, and it's yeah. So there are ways to do it that are, but again, it's the authentic, it's like the in the flow versus like it's a separate static commercial. You know what I mean? I think that's what you're kind of seeing more and more of.
Yeah. And one of the things, I mean, that I want to talk to you about is a salesperson, hiring a salesperson. I talk a lot in my program about, small business owners think we have to do it all. It's some fault if we're not able to do it all, but we're smart enough to go hire a CPA. We're smart enough to hire somebody to a tax attorney. I would not try and do open heart surgery on myself. I mean, but I think a lot of people think I shouldn't hire a sales person, at whatever level you want to call them. So when should businesses start thinking about, hey, maybe I need to have a salesperson?
I mean, I think that is a really tough question to answer, like across like everything. Look, for me, I look at you want to start to hire when you feel like you've got something that's quasi repeatable.
Okay.
And so if like you as an owner or you as a, whatever your role, if you feel like, okay, like how do we actually set meetings? Well, typically we do it like this, and this. Okay. Well, all right. So we've got a somewhat repeatable process to set new meetings. Maybe what we need first is a sales development rep to go set more meetings and she or he can execute this process. Then you go look at your sales process. It's like, okay, well, I usually have this meeting and I've got some questions I've got written down and here's how we talk about it. How we do this. So it's like, to me, it's like, if you are at the point where you can successfully, and again, we obviously do a lot of this work, right? It depends on like how early you are, but companies come to us all the time. And it's like, what we just do is we're pulling all the stuff out of everyone's head and just putting it in place. Like, you already have a process, probably, you just don't even know it.
Right.
You're just in it. You're just doing it. And so I think it's, once you start to realize like there's something repeatable, whether it's about how you're generating meetings or how you're closing deals, I think you can start to think about, and that would maybe be just, I want to call out a quick delineation. You don't have to hire a salesperson who can do everything. Sometimes the right move is hiring someone first who can help to generate more meetings and you take the deals. And then once you become bandwidth constrained, then you hire a salesperson.
Okay.
As opposed to hiring the salesperson who's supposed to find their own meetings, close their own deals, manage accounts. More and more sales is becoming, parts of the role are siloed or they're still all intertwined, but they're, they're basically like separate. So just think about that. Like, do I have a process for this? And do I feel like we could document this and get this in a place where someone else could do it? And that's step one.
Right. What happens if you bring somebody in too early?
Well, probably the biggest mistake I see companies make is they bring people in and then the people aren't successful. And I'll talk about interviewing salespeople too, because I think that'll be helpful. And then the person fails and they're like, yeah, Brad sucked.
Right.
And I always use the engineering analysis because it's the easiest. And what I say is this: I said, look, would you hire an engineer? So if you have a product, let's say you have a software or something, and you'd say, hey, so, oh yeah, you've written code before. Cool. All right. Here's no training, no anything on how we just go code some stuff. But that's what we do with salespeople. We're like, oh, you've done sales, but you know what to do. No, you would never do that. Any other job, it's the only job that we think that people, again, going back to something you were talking about at the beginning, it is not black magic. It is stop they're failing because you as a company aren't setting them up for success. And to think that you're just going to hire someone who's magically going to make your business bigger is delusional. And so again, you need to build a process, document what you're doing, and then work with that. Then that person can execute your process and optimize it. Right. And so I would say, do not hire a salesperson if you don't have the bandwidth to work to get them up to speed or to be successful, or you don't have already a kind of process that you can teach them, and you don't have to like hold their hand 24/7. I'm not saying that. That is the biggest mistake is they go through 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, however many salespeople, and it's their fault that people keep failing. And they keep looking for this, the Hail Mary salesperson, well, we'll give this one a shot and this one a shot. And then you wonder why they keep failing. It's because you're not setting them up for success properly.
Right.
Your CRM sucks. Your reporting sucks. They don't have any data. Like you're not giving them any resources. You're like, well, salespeople are supposed to fit. No, that's BS. Like the salespeople are not supposed to just magically figure out. You couldn't figure it out in 15 years, Jim. And how do you expect this salesperson to figure it out? So,
who's not been ingrained with everything.
So that's it. That's a big mistake. The other thing is interviewing. Meaning we run a very tight interview process that is very non-charisma factual based. And I think sometimes, again, it goes back to this conception of sales. Well, look at Jake. Jake's charismatic. People like him. Oh, he's going to be great.
He's going to be fabulous. He knows everybody.
That's right. That's not how we interview. And so we have a screening interview, which is, there's a set of questions. We run a set process for everybody. And the second interview is what we call a skills interview. So for each role, what we do is we identify a core set of skills. We rate the importance of those skills for the job on a scale of 1 to 5. And we label each skill red, yellow, or green. Red is things that I can't coach. Integrity. I can't coach you to have more integrity. Yellow are things that are difficult to change, but can with coaching. And green are things like that are actually easy to coach to.
Right.
So, what are the skills that we need for this role, that we need for this person? How important are those skills? And then how easy is it going to be for me to coach them? Right. So that's the first first big interview. So then we see okay, what are this person's skills? Wow. Okay. So they're a 3 in a lot of the reds and a 5 in a lot of the greens. Can I deal with that? And that's another part. So we'll give different people different skills to interview. So, okay, Jake, you're going to work on these 3, Matt, you'll take these 3, Brianna, you'll take these 5. So you want to get rid of the what do you think interview? We call it the what do you think interview process, which is everyone asks the question, the interviewee, the exact same questions. It's stupid. And then everyone gets in a room and says, what do you think? And looks at the most important person in the room.
Right.
That's not how you should interview people in 2021
for anything.
For any role. And then the last interview is what we call the experience interview. And this is from a series of books by Jeff Smart and his dad called Who. There's 3 of them. There's Who, there's Top Grading was the first book. And then his son wrote a book called Who and a book called Power Score. And the experience interview is very simple. We go way back in time. I don't care if you're 45 years old, we're going to go back to your first job out of college. And we're going to go 5 questions. What were you hired to do? What was the high point? What was what are the 2 high points? What was the low point? When I talk to your boss, how do you spell their name? Bum, 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 bum. How are they going to rate you on a scale of 1 to 10 and why? Why did you leave? And then we go to the next job. What were you hired to do? What were the 2 high points? What was the low point? When listen to the language. When I talk to your boss.
Yes, not if.
How do I spell their name? Okay, John Smith. Can you spell Smith for me? S-M-I-T-H. How will they rate you on a scale of 1 to 10 and why? And then you see the patterns of behavior. I see the patterns. They just, after about job 3, the patterns start to come out. This guy's a pain in the butt. All of his bosses rated him a 6 or 7. He can't give any of them as a reference. You start to see these patterns, or oh, wow, actually, you know what? She keeps getting these roles in this. I hear her talk about like the things that she views as success. Man, those aren't things that we have at our company.
Right.
Or her low points are always the things that we do are all culture. So if you want to get better at finding the right person, you've got to have a really tight interview process. And those 3 books, we've modeled a lot off of that process. It's a really solid process.
I love that. Well, oh my gosh, Jake, we're at the top of the hour almost, and we haven't even touched on many things. One of which is LinkedIn. I do a series in April where all of our April programs are only about LinkedIn. And so I'd love to bring you back then and really talk about how to do that. And so we'll set that up afterwards. But in the meantime, for people who are going, okay, I figured out I need to do this, but I'm lost. I don't know. How do people reach you? And what are the services that your company provides?
Yeah, so definitely LinkedIn's a great place, as you can imagine, to find me. You can go to Skaled with a K, SKALED.com. And learn a little bit more, but always just DM me. I'm happy. Like I said, it's about giving, right? It's about, helping people. And if it works out, it works out. So feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. And yeah, look, I mean, where we're really focused is kind of 2 areas. One is sales strategy. So companies if your company's trying to optimize the way they're generating leads and find, more different ways or more effective ways to generate leads, or your sales process or methodology, maybe you have a process or methodology you're trying to optimize. That's, we do a lot of that work. Early stage companies, we also do a lot of like interim work, like interim sales leader, interim operations, interim enablement. And then we have a whole sales technology practice as well too. So if some of the things around technology I don't even know anything what Jake was talking about. Like that sounded like, Greek to me. So we help companies to optimize their tech stack and, what do you call it? Not just optimize it, but help to, make sure that they're getting the most out of maybe even what they already have. And maybe they need and help them to kind of source new tools if they need new tools as well. So we do a lot of sales technology work because we feel like, again, a modern sales engine is a process that aligns to an ideal customer experience underpinned by technology to make everyone's life easier as a customer and an internal employee. So that's the core. That's the business.
Cool. And then you've got a podcast.
Got a podcast, the Jake Dunlap Show. Make sure to check that out. We interview individuals and we really talk a lot about their life stories. And we find all these really cool moments from, when people were early, growing up, something their dad told them, or, the uncle who is an entrepreneur, they sat alone at lunch every day in high school, and these really successful, famous people running publicly traded, companies talking about, the things that we all go through. And I think there's a lot of learnings for people and just the stories that they have.
I love it. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, like I said, we'll have you on again, because I think we definitely need to talk about LinkedIn, because that is the one place where people are just like, I don't know. I don't know how to use it. Sure, and I work with people all the time who are telling me, now what? And in fact, somebody just today said, okay, how do I use it to even connect with people at that deeper, more than just, connect level. And then of course, we all have the sleazy salespeople that, I mean, it's automated. I love it. I always respond with something wonkadoodle just to see at what happens. And so, I've got a little template of things that I email back to them, or, message to them, and basically to see if they're human. And then I tell them, hey, great. I'm happy to connect with you because clearly you are a human, but the second you try and sell me something, you're gone. And then, about half the time I get the automated template back and I'm like,
that's right.
Gone.
Well, have you talked about synergies yet?
Yes. And my favorites are the ones where I tell them, maybe you should look at my profile because I'm not going to hire you to do my social media. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll have you back on to talk about LinkedIn. But between now and then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Yeah. I mean, I think just think about what I said about at the very end here about, aligning to the customer experience. And I think too often we really are thinking about our own world, et cetera. I want everyone here to think about, when's the last time you looked at your customer experience? What is it actually like to do business with us? And started to look for ways to make that easier and more value add.
Great. I love that, because that is where we lose people. And it's a pretty simple process to figure out. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having a great conversation with Jake Dunlap of Skaled with a K Consulting. Can't wait to chat again. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.